The Galactic Council had existed for 12 million cycles. In human terms, that was a number so large that it lost all meaning. Civilizations had risen and fallen. Stars had been born and died. Entire species had evolved, built empires, and then faded into dust while the Council continued its slow and careful work. The great chamber of the Council sat at the heart of Station Prime, a structure so massive that it had its own gravity. Built over countless generations, it floated in the empty space between three spiral arms of the galaxy. Here, representatives of 4,127 species gathered to discuss trade agreements, border disputes, and the endless small matters that kept galactic civilization running smoothly. Ambassador of the Dominion had served on the Council for 300 cycles. His species was old by most standards, though young compared to the truly ancient races. They were tall and thin, with skin that glowed with soft bioluminescent light. Their emotions showed in the colors that rippled across their bodies. Right now, skin flickered with shades of deep purple and worried orange. He stood in the waiting chamber outside the Grand Assembly, holding a data tablet that felt heavier than it should. The information it contained had kept him awake for 6 rotations. Every time he read through the files, he hoped he had made some mistake. Every time, the data remained the same. "You look troubled, Ambassador." Turned to find High Archon approaching. The Grand Arbiter of the Council was ancient beyond measure. His species, had been among the founding members of the Council 12 million cycles ago. His body was covered in a thick carapace of dark blue shell, cracked and worn with age. He moved slowly, his many legs clicking against the polished floor, but his 7 eyes remained sharp and clear. "High Archon," said, bowing his head in respect, "I did not expect to see you before the session. When an emergency assembly is called in the middle of the rest cycle, I make it my business to know why." His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "The last time this happened was 4,000 cycles ago, when they accidentally opened a portal to a dead dimension. What could possibly warrant such urgency now?" Skin flickered with more purple. "Perhaps it would be best if I explained to the full Council, High Archon. I do not wish to repeat myself." Studied him for a long moment. Then he made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You are afraid. I can smell the chemical changes in your body. What has frightened you so badly, young one?" "Humans," said quietly. His eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of confusion. "I do not know this word." "You will, High Archon. Very soon everyone will." The Grand Assembly Chamber was designed to humble those who entered it. The ceiling rose so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. The walls were lined with thousands of tiers, each one holding the delegation of a different species. Lights of every color illuminated the vast space, adjusted to suit the visual needs of countless different eyes. At the center of the chamber stood the speaking platform, a simple circle of white stone that seemed very small against the enormous room. This was intentional. The Council believed that all species were equal, and so even the most powerful empires sent their representatives to stand on that humble platform when they wished to address the assembly. Walked to the platform now. His legs felt weak and his skin could not settle on a single color. Above him, thousands of aliens watched with interest. Emergency sessions were rare. Whatever news the ambassador brought must be important. "Members of the Galactic Council," began, his voice amplified to reach every corner of the chamber. "I come before you with news that may change everything we know about our galaxy and our place in it." Murmurs rippled through the tiers. Species who had been at war exchanged curious glances. Others leaned forward in their specialized pods, adjusting translation devices and sensory enhancers. 200 cycles ago, by the standard galactic calendar, one of our long-range listening stations detected unusual signals coming from a small planet in an unremarkable solar system. The signals were primitive radio waves, the kind produced by early technological civilizations. Following standard protocol, the station dispatched an observation probe to study this new species. Paused, gathering his thoughts. This was the easy part. What came next would be much harder. The probe arrived at the planet and began its observations. What it found was troubling. The dominant species called themselves humans. They lived on a world they named Earth, and they were, by every measure we use, extremely primitive and extremely dangerous. He activated his data tablet, and a holographic image appeared above the platform. It showed a blue and green world, beautiful in its way, but with the marks of industry and conflict. At the time of first observation, humans had only recently discovered nuclear energy. They had used this discovery to build weapons of terrible power, and they had used those weapons against each other. Their planet showed signs of numerous wars, environmental damage, and social instability. The probe classified them as a Class II civilization, with an estimated 50,000 cycles before they would be ready for contact. Grand Arbiter spoke from his position in the highest tier. This is standard procedure, Ambassador. We have observed thousands of primitive species. Why does this one warrant an emergency session? Skin went pale. Because the probe has returned, High Archon, and its new data shows that our initial assessment was catastrophically wrong. He changed the holographic display. Now it showed a star map, with a bright red dot marking a location that made several delegates gasp. The humans have achieved faster-than-light travel. They have built a fleet of ships using technology that our scientists do not fully understand. And as of 6 rotations ago, that fleet is sitting at the edge of Council space, requesting permission to enter. The chamber exploded into chaos. Species shouted over each other in 100 different languages. Delegates leaped from their seats, demanding more information, calling for military response, or simply trying to process what they had heard. The translation system struggled to keep up with the flood of voices. Raised one massive arm, and slowly the noise faded. When he spoke, his voice cut through the remaining whispers like a blade. Explain, Ambassador. Explain how a species classified as Class II only 200 cycles ago has achieved faster-than-light travel. Explain how they found Council space. Explain everything. Took a deep breath. The probe's records show that humans responded to the discovery of alien life very differently than we predicted. Most primitive species, when they learn they are not alone in the universe, experience a period of cultural shock. Some collapse into chaos. Others retreat into denial. The adjustment period typically lasts several thousand cycles. He brought up more images. Humans in laboratories. Humans building machines. Humans working together in ways that seemed almost frantic. Humans did not have a cultural shock. They had a cultural awakening. Within one generation of discovering the probe's presence, they had unified most of their planet under a single government. They redirected their entire industrial capacity toward one goal, reaching the stars. One generation. The voice came from the delegation of the hegemony, a militaristic species that had conquered 30 systems over the past million cycles. That is impossible. Unification alone should take thousands of cycles. We know. We tried. Humans are not like us, said simply. They are not like any species in the Council's records. They are adaptable. When faced with a threat or a challenge, they do not slowly adjust over generations. They change within years, sometimes within days. He showed more images. Human cities transforming, factories appearing overnight, ships being built in facilities that had not existed a decade before. They reverse-engineered our probe's technology, not completely but enough to understand the basic principles. From there, they developed their own versions, improved versions in some cases, and they did all of this in 200 cycles. Admiral of the Combine stood from her delegation's tier. She was a species of aquatic hunters who had evolved to become the Council's primary military force. Her sleek gray body was covered in sensors and implants, and her cold black eyes showed no emotion. "What kind of fleet?" she asked. "Numbers, capabilities, everything." Hesitated. This was the part he had been dreading most. The probe's sensors detected over 3,000 vessels of various sizes. The smallest appeared to be fast attack craft, roughly equivalent to our standard fighters. The largest. He changed the display again. The image that appeared made even Admiral take a step back. The largest is a mobile station approximately the size of a small moon. It appears to be a combination of shipyard, military base, and colony. Our sensors could not fully penetrate its hull, but initial readings suggest it has more firepower than our entire sector fleet. Silence fell over the chamber. It was not the silence of shock or fear, though both of those emotions were present. It was the silence of beings trying to understand something that did not fit into their view of the universe. The of Nexus Prime, a species of hive-minded telepaths who prided themselves on their unshakable logic, broadcast a single thought to the entire chamber. How? Had asked himself that same question many times. The best answer he could offer was also the most disturbing. Humans are not special in any individual way, he said. They are not stronger than they are not smarter than they do not live as long as they do not have natural weapons or armor or psychic abilities. He paused, letting his words sink in. What humans have is something that none of our models predicted. They have the ability to work together in ways that other species cannot match. They form connections across family groups, across tribal boundaries, across entire continents. And when they all work toward a single goal, they can achieve things that should be impossible. "You speak of them as if they are monsters," someone called out. "No," said, "I speak of them as they are, a species forged by constant struggle. They're trying to kill them with ice ages, plagues, predators, and natural disasters. They survived. They fought among themselves for resources and territory. They survived that too. Every challenge they faced made them stronger, faster, more adaptable." He looked around the chamber at the assembled delegates. Many of them came from species that had evolved in gentle environments where the living was easy and progress was slow. They had never faced extinction. They had never known true desperation. Humans have stared into the void of annihilation more times than any species in our records, and every single time they found a way to pull back from the edge. When they learned that the universe was full of other beings, beings with technology far beyond their own, they did not despair. They saw it as another challenge to overcome. Grand Arbiter shifted in his seat, his old joints creaking. "What do they want?" "They have sent a message," said. "They are requesting permission to send a diplomatic shuttle to Station Prime. They wish to address the Council." "And if we refuse?" Skin flickered with something close to despair. "High Archon, they have a fleet of 3,000 warships sitting at our border. If we refuse, I do not believe they will simply leave." The debate that followed lasted for many hours. Different factions argued for different responses. The hegemony wanted to launch an immediate military strike. The counseled caution and observation. The merchants and traders worried about disruption to commerce. The scientists begged for the chance to study human technology. Through it all, Admiral sat in silence, studying the images of the human fleet. Her tactical mind was racing through scenarios, calculating outcomes, measuring her forces against this unknown enemy. The numbers did not look good. Finally, Grand Arbiter called for order. The Ancient had listened to every argument, considered every perspective. Now he would render his judgment. "The Council has discussed this matter at length," he said. "We have heard calls for war and calls for peace. We have heard fear and we have heard courage. Now I will tell you what we will do." He paused, and the chamber held its breath. "We will grant the humans their request. We will allow a diplomatic shuttle to approach Station Prime. We will hear what they have to say." Protests erupted from several delegations, but raised his arm for silence. I am old, he continued. I have served on this council for longer than most species have existed. In all that time, I have learned one thing above all others. The universe has a way of surprising us. We thought we knew everything about how civilizations develop. We were wrong. We thought we knew the limits of what technology could achieve. We were wrong about that too. He looked out over the assembled delegates, meeting as many eyes as he could. Perhaps the humans are a threat. Perhaps they will destroy everything we have built. But perhaps they are something else entirely. Perhaps they are the answer to questions we have not yet thought to ask. We will not know until we speak with them. He turned to, "Send our reply, Ambassador. Tell the humans that the Council will receive their delegation. Tell them that we await their arrival with great interest." "Bode, it will be done, High Archon." As the assembly began to break up, the ambassador remained on the speaking platform for a moment longer. His skin had settled into a muted blue, the color of resignation and worry. 200 cycles ago, his people had sent a probe to observe a primitive species on a small blue world. It had seemed like such a routine mission at the time. No one had imagined that it would lead to this moment, with the fate of the entire galaxy hanging in the balance. Somewhere out there, at the edge of Council space, the human fleet waited. 3,000 ships, carrying millions of beings who had crossed the void of space to find their place among the stars. They had fought their way up from the mud and the blood of their violent world. They had conquered their own worst impulses and united against the darkness of the unknown. And now they were here. Did not know what the humans wanted. He did not know if they came in peace or if they came to conquer, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. The galaxy would never be the same. He stepped down from the speaking platform and walked toward the communications center to send his message. Behind him, the great chamber of the council slowly emptied as thousands of aliens returned to their delegations to prepare for what was coming. In the highest tier, Grand Arbiter remained in his seat for a long time, staring at the holographic image of the human fleet that still floated above the speaking platform. His 7 eyes studied the ships with an intensity that few had ever seen from the ancient. He was afraid. For the first time in millions of cycles, he felt real fear, not for himself but for everything the Council had built, everything they had worked so hard to achieve. But beneath the fear, buried deep where even he barely noticed it, there was something else. Curiosity. The humans were coming, and despite everything, despite the danger and the uncertainty and the risk, found himself wanting to meet them. He wanted to look into their eyes and understand what drove them, what made them so different from every other species in the galaxy, what allowed them to achieve the impossible again and again. The answers would come soon enough. The humans were coming, and everyone could only watch and wait. The message traveled at faster-than-light speeds across the void between stars. It carried simple words. The Council would receive the human delegation. A diplomatic shuttle was granted permission to approach Station Prime. On the bridge of the massive vessel called the Prometheus, Fleet Admiral Helena read the message 3 times before allowing herself a small smile. She was a woman in her 60s, with gray-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that had seen more than most people could imagine. She had led humanity's first expedition beyond the solar system. She had watched friends die in the cold emptiness between stars, and she had spent the last 20 years preparing for this exact moment. "They said yes," she announced to her command staff. "The Council will see us." Captain James, her second in command, let out a breath he had been holding. He was a tall man with dark skin and a calm demeanor that hid a brilliant tactical mind. "I admit I had my doubts. The projections said there was a 30% chance they would open fire the moment we appeared." "The projections were based on incomplete data," replied. "We knew the Council was built on diplomacy, not warfare. They were always going to talk first. And if the talking fails..." Looked out through the massive viewport at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, invisible at this distance, lay Station Prime and the collected might of galactic civilization. 4,000 species, 12 million years of history, technology so advanced it seemed like magic. "Then we'll do what humans have always done," she said. "We'll adapt." The human fleet had been waiting at the edge of Council space for 6 rotations. 3,000 ships hung in perfect formation, their crews maintaining constant readiness, while diplomats and politicians argued about what to do next. It was a testament to human discipline that there had been no incidents, no accidents, no moments of panic that might have sparked an interstellar war. Admiral had trained them well. She turned from the viewport and addressed her staff. "Signal the fleet. Maintain formation but reduce active scanning to minimum levels. We don't want them to think we're sizing them up for an attack." "We kind of are, though," muttered Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park, the fleet's chief intelligence officer. She was young for her position, barely 40, but she had a mind like a steel trap and no patience for pretending things were other than they were. "What they don't know won't hurt them," replied with a slight smile. "Or us. Now let's discuss the diplomatic approach." The meeting that followed lasted several hours. The team reviewed everything they knew about the Council, which was surprisingly little. The probe they had captured 200 years ago had contained extensive data about galactic civilization, but much of it was outdated or incomplete. They knew the basics: thousands of species, a complex political structure, technology far beyond human capabilities. What they didn't know was how the Council would react to them. The probe's programming suggested that new species were typically integrated slowly, over thousands of years. They were observed, tested, judged by standards that took centuries to meet. The idea that a species could go from primitive radio signals to faster-than-light travel in 200 years was not just unexpected. It was unprecedented. "They're going to be afraid of us," said Dr. Michael Torres, the fleet's chief. He was a quiet man with a gentle face and a mind that understood alien psychology better than anyone alive. "Not because of our ships or our weapons, but because we don't fit their models. We represent something they can't predict or control." "Fear can be useful," replied. "It can also be dangerous. Our job is to channel that fear into respect." "And if we can't?" Didn't answer. She didn't need to. Everyone in the room knew what was at stake. Humanity had bet everything on this moment. The resources of an entire planet, the work of 3 generations, the hopes and dreams of billions of people. All of it came down to what happened in the next few days. The diplomatic shuttle was called the Olive Branch, a name chosen for its symbolic meaning in human culture. It was small compared to the warships that surrounded it, barely 50 meters long, but it contained some of the most advanced technology humanity had ever created. Its hull could withstand impacts that would vaporize lesser vessels. Its engines could outrun anything in the fleet. And hidden within its frame were sensors and communication systems that would record everything about Station Prime and transmit it back to the Prometheus in real time. Admiral would lead the delegation herself. It was a risk, putting the fleet commander in potential danger, but she had insisted. The Council needed to see that humans took this meeting seriously. They needed to see that the people who led humanity's military were not afraid to put themselves on the line. Besides, had not traveled all this way to miss the most important moment in human history. The shuttle launched from the Prometheus and began its long journey toward Station Prime. As it flew, watched through the viewport as the massive human fleet grew smaller behind her. 3,000 ships, millions of crew members, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. And ahead of her, something even larger. Station Prime appeared on the sensors long before it became visible to the naked eye. At first, it was just numbers on a screen, measurements that seemed impossible. Then slowly, it resolved into an image that made even catch her breath. The station was not just big. It was a world unto itself, Hundreds of kilometers across, it hung in space like a jewel made of light and metal. Structures jutted from its surface in every direction, each one large enough to hold a city. Ships of every size and shape moved around it like insects around a hive, coming and going from docking ports that numbered in the thousands. "My God," whispered Captain, who had insisted on accompanying her. "It's beautiful." Nodded slowly. 12 million years. That's how long they've had to build this, to perfect it. She paused, studying the impossible structure. "And we're going to walk in there and tell them we belong among them." Do we? It was a question had asked herself many times. Humanity was young. So terribly young compared to the civilizations they were about to meet. 200 years ago, they had been killing each other with nuclear weapons. 1,000 years before that, they had been fighting with swords and spears. What right did they have to stand among species that had been building empires before humans learned to walk upright? "We belong wherever we choose to stand," said finally. "That's what makes us human." The shuttle approached one of the many docking ports, guided by automated systems that the humans had learned to interface with through years of study. As they grew closer, could see other ships in the area. Some were familiar, matching designs recorded in the probe's database. Others were strange and new, shapes that human eyes had never seen before. And everywhere there were aliens. They came in every size and shape imaginable. Some were massive, larger than elephants, lumbering through corridors designed for their enormous bodies. Others were tiny, no bigger than insects flying through the air in great swarms. Some walked on 2 legs, others on 4, 6, 8, or more. Some had no legs at all, slithering or floating or moving in ways that easy description. "The probe's data was accurate," said Dr. Torres, his eyes wide with wonder. "But seeing it in person, this is beyond anything I imagined." The shuttle docked with a soft thump, and the airlock cycled open. On the other side waited a delegation of aliens, arranged in a formal receiving line. At the front stood a tall, thin being whose skin glowed with soft bioluminescent light. "I am ambassador of the Dominion," the being said, his words translated perfectly by the systems built into the shuttle. "On behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome you to Station Prime." Stepped forward. She was wearing her dress uniform, medals gleaming on her chest, but she suddenly felt very small and very ordinary. Behind her stood 11 other humans, the best diplomats and experts Earth had to offer. Together, they represented the hopes of an entire species. "I am Fleet Admiral Helena of the United Earth Expeditionary Force," she said. "On behalf of humanity, I thank you for receiving us." Skin flickered with colors that could not interpret. "Your arrival has caused considerable discussion among the council members. Many questions have been raised, many concerns voiced." "I understand," said. "We have questions and concerns of our own. That is why we are here to talk, to learn, to find a way forward together." The ambassador studied her for a long moment. His large eyes, dark and deep, seemed to look right through her. Then he nodded slowly. "Follow me, the council is waiting." They walked through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. Every surface was smooth and clean, made from materials that did not recognize. The air was comfortable, a perfect temperature and humidity, despite the fact that it was being shared by dozens of different species with different biological needs. Everywhere they went, aliens stopped to stare. Some watched with open curiosity, others with barely hidden fear. Heard whispers in languages she could not understand, though her translation device caught fragments. "So small. Look at their eyes. Are they really the ones?" She kept her face neutral, her pace steady. She had been trained for this. All of her people had been trained for this. They were ambassadors now, representing not just themselves but every human who had ever lived. Every choice they made, every word they spoke, every expression that crossed their faces would be analyzed and remembered. The corridor opened into a vast chamber that took breath away. The Grand Assembly Hall was larger than anything she had ever seen. The ceiling rose so high that it disappeared into mist and distance. Thousands of tiers lined the walls, each one filled with aliens of every description. And at the center, a simple white platform waited for her. "You will address the council from there," said. "They will hear your words translated into every known language. They will see your image projected onto screens throughout the station and beyond. What you say in the next hour will shape the future of your species." Nodded, no pressure then. The skin flickered with what might have been amusement. Indeed. She walked toward the platform. Her footsteps echoed in the sudden silence that had fallen over the chamber. Thousands of eyes, sensors, and other sensory organs tracked her movement. She could feel the weight of their attention, a pressure that was almost physical. When she reached the platform, she turned to face the assembled council. For a moment, she simply stood there, letting them look at her. She was not impressive by human standards, let alone alien ones. She was old, worn down by years of service and sacrifice. She had none of the natural advantages that other species possessed. No claws, no armor, no psychic powers, no special abilities at all. But she was human, and that she had come to believe was enough. "Members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "Thank you for allowing us this audience. We know that our arrival has been unexpected. We know that our presence raises questions and concerns. We are here to address those concerns honestly and openly." She paused, gathering her thoughts. The next words were crucial. They would set the tone for everything that followed. 200 of your cycles ago, you sent a probe to observe our world. You saw a species divided by war, poisoned by pollution, struggling to survive on a planet that seemed determined to destroy them. You classified us as primitive. You estimated that we would need 50,000 cycles to reach the stars. She smiled, and there was something fierce in that smile, something proud and defiant and utterly human. "We did it in 200. A murmur ran through the chamber. Let it fade before continuing. "You might wonder how. You might wonder what secret technology or hidden advantage allowed us to achieve the impossible. The truth is much simpler than that. We are human, and humans do not accept limits. We do not bow to circumstances. When the universe tells us something cannot be done, we find a way to do it anyway." She looked up at the thousands of watching aliens, meeting as many eyes as she could. "We are not here to threaten you. We are not here to conquer or to dominate. We are here because the stars called to us, and we answered. We are here because we believe that our species has something to offer the galaxy. And we are here because we hope that you will give us the chance to prove it." She paused again, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer, more personal. "I know you are afraid of us. I can see it in your faces, hear it in your whispers. You look at our fleet and you see a threat. You look at our technology and you see danger. You look at our history and you see violence." She nodded slowly. "You are not wrong to be cautious. Humanity's past is written in blood. We have done terrible things to each other. We have come close to destroying ourselves more than once. We are not a perfect species. We are not even a particularly good one by many measures." Her voice hardened. "But we are here. Despite everything, despite all the wars and plagues and disasters, despite all the times we should have died, we are here. We survived. We adapted. We grew stronger. And we did not stop reaching for the stars." She spread her hands, a gesture of openness that she hoped would translate across species boundaries. "That is what we offer you. Not perfection, not superiority, but determination, resilience, the stubborn refusal to give up no matter what the universe throws at us. We have faced extinction more times than we can count, and every time we have found a way to survive." She lowered her hands and stood straight, every inch the military commander she had always been. "The galaxy is a vast and dangerous place. We know this better than most. We have seen the emptiness between the stars, felt the cold of the void, understood how small and fragile we truly are. But we have also seen beauty beyond imagination. wonders that make all our struggles worthwhile, a universe full of mysteries waiting to be explored. Her voice rose, filling the chamber with passion and conviction. We want to be part of that exploration. We want to work alongside you, learn from you, share what we have discovered. We want to help build something greater than any single species could achieve alone. That is why we have come. That is what we hope to find here. She stopped speaking and stood in silence, waiting for the council's response. The chamber was quiet, thousands of beings processing her words, considering their implications, weighing their fears against their hopes. Finally, a voice spoke from the highest tier. It was Grand Arbiter, his ancient body creaking as he leaned forward. "You speak well, Admiral. Your words are passionate and sincere, but words are easy. What we must decide is whether we can trust the species that speaks them." Met his 7 eyes without flinching. "Then let us show you that you can. Give us the chance to prove ourselves, not through words but through actions. That is all we ask." Was silent for a long moment, then he nodded slowly. "We will discuss your request. In the meantime, you and your delegation will be given quarters on the station. You will be treated as honored guests, but your fleet must remain where it is. Those are our terms." Had expected this, agreed. "Then we are done for now. This session is adjourned." As the chamber began to empty, remained on the platform for a moment longer. She looked up at the impossible architecture, the thousands of species, the accumulated history of 12 million years. Humanity had taken its first step into a larger universe. Now the real work would begin. The quarters provided to the human delegation were comfortable beyond anything they had expected. The rooms were large and well lit, with furniture that adjusted automatically to human proportions. The air was perfect, the temperature ideal, and the food synthesizers had somehow learned to produce meals that tasted almost like home. Admiral suspected this was intentional. The council wanted the humans to feel welcome, to relax, to let their guard down. It was a diplomatic technique as old as civilization itself, and she respected them for using it. She did not, however, let her guard down. In the privacy of her quarters, she reviewed the data that the olive branch's sensors had collected during their approach. The shuttle systems had been scanning constantly, recording everything from the composition of Station Prime's hull to the energy signatures of passing ships. The amount of information was staggering, and it would take years to fully analyze. But some patterns were already clear. The Council was powerful, more powerful than humanity had imagined. Their technology was advanced beyond anything the captured probe had suggested, and their military capabilities were substantial. If it came to war, humanity would fight hard, but the outcome was far from certain. That made diplomacy even more important. A chime at her door announced a visitor. Touched a control, and the door slid open to reveal Ambassador, his bioluminescent skin glowing with soft blue light. "Admiral," he said, "I hope I am not disturbing you." "Not at all, Ambassador. Please come in." They entered and stood awkwardly in the center of the room, clearly uncertain of human hospitality customs. Gestured to a chair. "Please sit. Can I offer you anything?" "Your kindness is appreciated, but I cannot consume human food. Our biologies are too different." Settled into the chair, which adjusted itself to accommodate his thin frame. "I have come to speak with you privately, Admiral, away from the formal proceedings of the Council." Sat across from him, her expression neutral. "I'm listening." "You must understand something about the Council," said. "We have existed for 12 million cycles. In that time, we have seen countless species rise and fall. We have watched civilizations destroy themselves with war, with technology, with simple inability to adapt. We have learned through bitter experience that rapid advancement is dangerous." He paused, his skin flickering with colors that was beginning to recognize as concern. "When we first observed your species, we saw all the signs of a civilization headed for self-destruction. nuclear weapons, environmental collapse, social instability. Our models predicted that you would either destroy yourselves within a few hundred cycles or slowly mature over tens of thousands of years. Neither possibility required immediate attention. But we surprised you, said. You terrified us, replied bluntly. Not because of your ships or your weapons, but because you should not exist. A species cannot advance as fast as you have without making catastrophic mistakes. It is not possible, and yet here you are. Nodded slowly. I understand your fear, Ambassador, but I wonder if you understand ours. Your fear. When we discovered that probe orbiting our world, we realized something terrible. We were not alone in the universe, and we were not ready. His voice was quiet but intense. Do you know what it's like to suddenly understand that everything you thought you knew is wrong? That your entire species, your entire planet, is just a tiny speck in a galaxy full of beings who are older, smarter, and more powerful than you. She leaned forward. We didn't know if the species that sent that probe were friendly or hostile. We didn't know if they were watching us, preparing to invade, or simply observing from a distance. All we knew was that they existed, and we were completely unprepared. Skin shifted to darker shades. So you prepared. We did what humans have always done when faced with a threat we don't understand. We learned. We adapted. We built. Smile was thin. We may be young, Ambassador, but we are very, very fast learners. That is what worries the Council most, admitted. Your capacity for change. Most species evolve slowly over generations. Changes happen, but they take time. They can be predicted, managed, controlled, but humans. He trailed off and finished for him. Humans can change overnight. When we need to, we can throw away everything we thought we knew and become something entirely new. Yes, and that makes you unpredictable, dangerous. Or valuable, suggested. It depends on your perspective. The formal session of the Council resumed the next day. Admiral once again stood on the white platform at the center of the Grand Assembly Chamber, surrounded by thousands of watching aliens. But this time, she was not alone. Her team stood with her, ready to support her presentation with data, examples, and evidence. Grand Arbiter called the session to order. Admiral, you have requested the opportunity to explain humanity's rapid development in more detail. The Council has agreed to hear your testimony. You may proceed. Nodded. Thank you, High Arbiter. She turned to address the full chamber. Yesterday, I spoke in general terms about humanity's determination and resilience. Today, I want to show you exactly what I meant. She activated a holographic display, and an image of Earth appeared above the platform. It was beautiful, blue and green, swirled with white clouds. This is we call it Earth. It is a small planet, unremarkable in most ways. But it is where our species was born, where we learned to survive, where we first looked up at the stars and wondered what lay beyond. The image zoomed in, showing the surface. Forests and deserts, mountains and oceans, cities and farms. Earth is not an easy place to live. The climate is unstable, prone to sudden shifts that can last centuries. The geography is violent, full of earthquakes and volcanoes and storms. Disease is common and resources are limited. Other intelligent species might have evolved on easier worlds. We did not. The image changed, showing scenes from human history. Cave paintings, ancient cities, armies marching to war. For most of our existence, we struggled simply to survive. We had no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. We were not the strongest or the fastest or the most deadly creatures on our world. What we had was our minds, our ability to cooperate, and our stubborn refusal to accept our limitations. More images flowed across the display, ships crossing oceans, machines transforming landscapes, rockets reaching for the sky. Over time, we learned to make tools that extended our capabilities. We built shelters that protected us from the elements. We developed agriculture that freed us from constant hunting. We created civilizations that allowed us to specialize, to develop new skills, to push the boundaries of what was possible. She paused, letting the images speak for themselves. But progress was never easy. For every step forward there were setbacks. Wars destroyed what we had built. Plagues killed millions. Natural disasters wiped out entire civilizations. Again and again we were knocked down, and again we got back up. The display showed darker images now. Battlefields, burning cities, mushroom clouds. 200 of your cycles ago, when your probe first observed us, we were in the middle of our greatest crisis. We had discovered nuclear weapons, and we had used them. We had poisoned our environment and divided ourselves into hostile factions. By every objective measure, we were a species on the brink of extinction. His voice grew harder, more intense. And then we found your probe. We learned that we were not alone, and everything changed. The images shifted again, showing the transformation of human civilization. Divided nations coming together, resources being pooled, a global effort unlike anything in history. Faced with the knowledge that other species existed, humanity did something remarkable. We put aside our differences. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough. We created a global government that represented all of humanity. We redirected our resources toward a single goal, preparing for contact with alien civilizations. Dr. Torres stepped forward, taking over the presentation. From a scientific perspective, what followed was unprecedented in the history of intelligent species. The captured probe's technology was completely beyond our understanding. We had no framework for interpreting its systems, no foundation for understanding its principles. He brought up technical diagrams that made several alien scientists lean forward with interest. So we did something that most species would consider foolish. We tried everything. We formed thousands of research teams, each pursuing different approaches. We encouraged wild speculation and unconventional thinking. We rewarded failure as much as success, because every failed experiment taught us something new. More diagrams appeared, showing the evolution of human technology over 2 centuries. The process was chaotic and inefficient by conventional standards, but it was also incredibly fast. Within 50 years, we understood the basic principles of the probe's drive system. Within 100 years, we had built our own version. Within 150 years, we had improved on the original design. He stepped back and resumed speaking. I tell you this not to boast, but to explain. Humanity's greatest strength is not any single ability or technology. It is our willingness to change, to experiment, to try things that should not work and sometimes discover that they do. She looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as she could. We know that this makes us unpredictable. We know that our rapid advancement frightens you. But I ask you to consider, what if that unpredictability could be an asset rather than a threat? Grand Arbiter's voice rumbled through the chamber. Explain what you mean, Admiral. Nodded. The galaxy is not static. It changes, evolves, faces new challenges. A civilization that cannot adapt to those changes will eventually fail. The Council has survived for 12 million cycles, and that is an incredible achievement. But has it always been easy? She let the question hang in the air. Your records speak of wars and crises. The Swarm, which nearly destroyed the Council 300,000 cycles ago. The Great Division, when half the member species threatened to withdraw. The Silence Plague, which wiped out entire worlds before a cure was found. Each time, the Council survived, but at tremendous cost. The chamber had grown very quiet. These were not subjects that the Council discussed openly. Humanity offers something different, a species that can respond quickly to new threats, a perspective that does not assume the old ways are always best, a willingness to take risks that more cautious species would never consider. She paused, then played her final card. And we offer something else as well, something I have not yet mentioned. The display changed one last time, showing a region of space at the very edge of the galaxy. It was dark and empty, but sensor readings overlaid the image showed disturbing patterns. Your records call this the void terminus, a region of space that your probe makers warned us about in their data archives. Something exists there, something old and powerful and wrong, something that the Council has spent millions of cycles trying to ignore. Admiral of the Combine rose from her seat. How do you know about the void terminus? That information is classified at the highest levels. Your probe contained references to it, replied. Encoded warnings that took us decades to decrypt. We have been monitoring the region ever since we achieved the capability to do so. She brought up more data, showing energy patterns and movement signatures that made several scientists gasp. The void terminus is not dormant. It is active, and based on our projections, whatever lives there will reach inhabited space within 3,000 of your cycles. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted over each other, demanding explanations, denying the evidence, calling for immediate action. Grand Arbiter had to pound his gavel repeatedly before order was restored. These are serious accusations, Admiral, he said, his voice heavy. If true, they would represent the greatest threat the Council has ever faced. I know, said. That is why I am telling you now, not to frighten you but to prepare you. The galaxy is about to face something that 12 million cycles of caution will not defeat. You will need new approaches, new thinking, new allies. She spread her hands, a gesture of offering. Humanity is young. We are inexperienced. We have much to learn from the wisdom the Council has accumulated over millions of cycles. But we also have something to offer, a way of thinking that does not accept limits, a capacity for rapid change that could mean the difference between survival and extinction. She looked up at the Grand Arbiter, her eyes steady and calm. The choice is yours. You can reject us, send us back to our little blue world, and hope that you can face what is coming on your own. Or you can accept us as partners, with all the risks and benefits that entails. She paused, letting the silence stretch. Either way, what is coming will not wait. The void terminus stirs. The darkness is rising, and the galaxy will need every advantage it can get. The session ended without a decision. The Council members retreated to their delegations to discuss what they had heard, to argue and debate and worry, but knew that she had planted seeds that would not easily be ignored. That night she stood alone in her quarters, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the human fleet waited. Somewhere beyond that, Earth spun on its axis, carrying billions of people who had no idea what their leaders were doing in their name. And somewhere at the edge of the galaxy, in the darkness between the stars, something ancient was waking up. Did not know what the future would bring. She did not know if the Council would accept humanity or reject them. She did not know if her species would survive what was coming. But she knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened, humanity would face it the way they had faced everything else. Together, and they would not give up. Not now, not ever. That was what it meant to be human. 3 days passed after Admiral's testimony. 3 days of whispered conversations, emergency meetings, and tense negotiations. The Council was divided in ways it had not been for centuries. Some factions wanted to welcome the humans with open arms. Others wanted to destroy them before they became a threat. Most simply did not know what to think. Admiral used the time wisely. She met with delegations from dozens of species, answering their questions, addressing their concerns, slowly building relationships that might prove useful later. She learned their names, their customs, their fears and hopes. She treated each one with respect, regardless of their size or power or importance. It was exhausting work but necessary. Humanity's future depended on making friends, not just impressing enemies. On the 4th day, she was summoned to a private meeting with a group she had not expected, the Scientific Council of the Assembly. The meeting room was small by station prime standards, but still larger than most buildings on Earth. A circular table dominated the center, surrounded by representatives from a dozen different species. They were scientists, researchers, and scholars, beings who had dedicated their lives to understanding the universe. At the head of the table sat Doctor, the council's chief. She was a species that resembled translucent jellyfish floating in personal gravity fields. Her body shifted and pulsed as she spoke. Admiral, thank you for joining us. We have been reviewing the data your delegation provided about the void terminus. We have questions. Took a seat at the table. I'll answer what I can. Your sensor readings suggest that the void terminus contains an active presence, Doctor said. Something that moves, responds, and appears to be growing. Can you describe your methodology for reaching these conclusions? Of course. Activated her personal display, bringing up the data in question. Our first indication came from long-range gravity sensors. We detected fluctuations at the edge of the galaxy that did not match any known natural phenomenon. They were too regular, too organized. Something was causing them deliberately. She highlighted specific patterns in the data. We then deployed a series of unmanned probes to get closer readings. Most of them were destroyed or simply stopped transmitting, but a few managed to send back information before they were lost. The display showed sensor readings that made several scientists lean forward with interest. Strange energy signatures, impossible geometries, movements that seemed to defy physics. We don't know exactly what's in the void terminus, admitted. Our data is incomplete and our understanding is limited. But we know that it's real, it's active, and it's slowly expanding toward inhabited space. Doctor's body pulsed with colors that could not interpret. The Council has been aware of anomalies in that region for millions of cycles. We have always assumed they were natural phenomena, areas where the laws of physics behave differently due to unusual conditions. With respect, Doctor, natural phenomena do not destroy observation probes. No, Doctor agreed, they do not. Another scientist spoke up. This one was a massive reptilian being with scales like armor and teeth like daggers. His species was known for their military prowess, not their academic achievements, but this one wore the symbols of a senior researcher. Admiral, your testimony mentioned that the void terminus would reach inhabited space within 3,000 cycles. How did you calculate this timeline? By tracking its expansion rate over the past 200 years, replied. When we first began monitoring the region, the boundary of the anomalous zone was approximately 12,000 light-years from the nearest inhabited system. Now it is 10,800. She brought up a chart showing the progression. The expansion is not linear. It's accelerating. If current trends continue, the first inhabited systems will be affected within 3,000 cycles. Major population centers within 4,000. The room was silent. Even the most skeptical scientists could not easily dismiss such clear data. You realize what you are suggesting, Doctor said finally. If your projections are correct, the Council will face an existential threat within a that allows no room for error. Preparations would need to begin immediately. Yes, said, that is exactly what I am suggesting. The meeting continued for several more hours. The scientists asked detailed questions about human methodology, demanded access to raw data, and debated the implications of what they were hearing. Answered everything honestly, holding nothing back. She knew that trust was built through transparency, not secrecy. By the end of the session, she could see that she had made progress. The scientists were still skeptical, but they were also curious. They wanted to know more. They wanted to understand. That was enough for now. The next day, Admiral was invited to address the full council once more. This time, she came with a proposal. Members of the Galactic Council, she began, standing once again on the white platform at the center of the Grand Assembly Chamber. I have presented evidence of a threat that the galaxy may soon face. I have explained humanity's rapid development and our desire to join the Council as partners. Now I wish to offer something more concrete. She paused, looking around the vast chamber. Words can only prove so much. Actions speak louder. I propose a demonstration of human capabilities, not to threaten or intimidate, but to show you what we can offer. Grand Arbiter leaned forward. What kind of demonstration? There is an asteroid field in the system, said. Our sensors have identified 12 planet-killing asteroids on trajectories that will eventually threat inhabited worlds. According to Council records, a 300-cycle project has been planned to gradually deflect these asteroids using gravitational tugs. Admiral spoke from her position in the military tier. The deflection project, it is scheduled to begin next cycle. What of it? With your permission, said, humanity would like to resolve the asteroid problem. Today. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. His cold eyes narrowed. Explain. Nodded to one of her officers, who activated a communication link. Admiral to Prometheus, is Operation Clearance ready to proceed? A voice crackled back. Yes, Admiral, awaiting your command. Stand by. Turned back to the Council. Our flagship, the Prometheus, carries a weapon system that we developed specifically for situations like this. Large-scale threats that require immediate elimination. If you will direct your observation systems to the system, we will demonstrate its capabilities. There was a long pause. Grand Arbiter consulted with his advisors, then nodded slowly. Very well, Admiral. The Council will observe your demonstration. But understand this. If your actions threaten any inhabited world or any Council vessel, we will consider it an act of war. Understood, said. Prometheus, execute Operation Clearance. On screens throughout the chamber, the view shifted to the system. 12 massive asteroids hung in space, each one large enough to devastate a planet. They had been drifting for millions of years, gradually falling toward the inner system where billions of beings made their homes. Far away, at the edge of Council space, the massive station that was humanity's flagship began to move. Energy gathered along its equator, building in intensity until the entire structure seemed to glow with captured starlight. What is that? Someone whispered. Did not answer, she simply watched. The beam that erupted from the Prometheus was invisible in the vacuum of space, but every sensor in the system tracked its path. It crossed the distance between the fleet and the asteroids in an instant, faster than thought, faster than comprehension. And then the asteroids were gone. Not destroyed, not shattered, simply gone. Where 12 planet killers had floated moments before, there was now only empty space. The energy signature faded, and the Prometheus settled back into its position at the edge of the fleet. The time display at the bottom of the screen showed the duration of the operation, 0.03 seconds. The chamber was utterly silent. Admiral was the first to speak. Her voice was flat, controlled, but could see the tension in her body. What was that? We call it a quantum dispersion beam, replied. It does not destroy matter in the conventional sense. It disperses it at the subatomic level, spreading the component particles across a volume of space so large that they can never recombine. You erased those asteroids from existence. In practical terms, yes. His black eyes studied with new intensity. And this weapon could be used on anything, ships, stations, planets. Theoretically, yes. His voice was calm. But we did not develop it to threaten you. We developed it to protect ourselves from threats we could not otherwise face. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of species who were now looking at humanity with a mixture of fear and awe. The void terminus contains something that we do not understand, something that our conventional weapons may not be able to stop. We built the Prometheus because we knew that someday we might face enemies that required unconventional solutions. She paused, letting her words sink in. I know that what you just saw frightens you. It should. Humanity possesses power that no species in your records has ever achieved. We could use that power to conquer. We could use it to destroy. We could become the very threat that you feared when we first arrived. Her voice hardened. But we have not come here to threaten you. We have not come to dominate or control. We have come because we believe that the galaxy needs us, not as conquerors but as protectors. Grand Arbiter's ancient voice filled the chamber. You ask us to trust you, to believe that a species capable of erasing matter from existence will use that power wisely. I ask you to give us the chance to prove ourselves, replied. Not through words but through actions. Let us work alongside you. Let us share our technology and learn from yours. Let us face whatever is coming together. She spread her hands, a gesture of openness. The galaxy has been at peace for a long time, perhaps too long. You have forgotten what it means to face extinction. You have forgotten what it means to fight for survival, but humanity has never forgotten. We have stared into the void of annihilation more times than we can count, and every time we have found a way to survive. Her voice rose, filling the chamber with passion and conviction. That is what we offer you, not just our weapons or our technology, but our spirit, our determination, our stubborn refusal to accept defeat. When the darkness comes, and it will come, you will need allies who know how to fight, who know how to adapt, who know how to win against impossible odds. She lowered her hands and stood straight. We are those allies, if you will have us. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, Grand Arbiter rose from his seat. His ancient body creaked and groaned, but he stood tall. The Council will deliberate on your proposal, he said. Return to your quarters, Admiral. You will have our answer soon. Bowed her head. Thank you, High Arbiter. As she turned to leave, she caught Ambassador's eye. The skin was flickering with colors she had never seen before. She could not read his expression, but she thought she saw something like hope in his large, dark eyes. Maybe, just maybe, this would work. The deliberation lasted for 17 hours. Spent most of that time in her quarters, reviewing reports from the fleet and trying not to think about everything that could go wrong. Her officers came and went, bringing news and speculation, but she barely heard them. Everything depended on what happened in that chamber. 300 years of preparation, 3 generations of sacrifice, billions of people waiting on a small blue world, hopping and dreaming and praying for a future among the stars. It all came down to this. Finally, just as the station's artificial lights were dimming to simulate evening, a message arrived. Admiral was summoned to the council chamber. She dressed in her finest uniform, made sure every medal was straight, and walked through the corridors of Station Prime one more time. Aliens parted before her, watching with eyes and sensors and organs she could not name. Some looked at her with fear, others with curiosity, a few perhaps with something like respect. The chamber was nearly full when she arrived. Thousands of species had gathered to hear the council's decision. She walked to the white platform and waited. Grand Arbiter rose from his seat. His 7 eyes found her across the vast distance, and she met his gaze without flinching. Admiral, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. The Galactic Council has considered your request. We have debated for many hours. We have weighed the risks and the benefits. We have consulted our oldest records and our advisors. He paused, and the silence was absolute. In 12 million cycles, no species has ever been admitted to the Council as you have requested. The process of integration has always been slow, careful, measured. We take no action without centuries of consideration. We change nothing without of preparation. Felt her heart sink. They were going to refuse. But, continued, these are not ordinary times. The evidence you have presented regarding the void terminus is troubling. The capabilities you have demonstrated are remarkable, and the spirit you have shown is unlike anything we have encountered in our long history." He straightened his ancient body, and something like pride entered his voice. "The Galactic Council votes to accept humanity as a provisional member, not as applicants to be observed and tested over, but as partners in the defense of the galaxy. You will have full access to Council resources, full participation in Council decisions, and full responsibility for helping to protect all member species from whatever threats may come." Barely heard the rest. Her heart was pounding so loud that she could feel it in her ears. They had done it. Against all odds, against all expectations, they had done it. Humanity had joined the stars. When the formalities were complete and the chamber began to empty, Grand Arbiter approached her. His ancient body moved slowly, but his eyes were bright with intelligence. "You planned this carefully," he said quietly. "Every word, every gesture, every demonstration, all calculated to achieve this outcome." Nodded. "We had 200 years to prepare, High Arbiter. We left nothing to chance." "And if we had refused?" She met his gaze steadily. "Then we would have found another way. We always do." Was silent for a long moment. Then he made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You are a remarkable species, Admiral. I have lived for millions of cycles, and I have never met anything quite like you." "Is that a compliment or a warning?" "Perhaps both." He studied her with those 7 ancient eyes. "The Council has accepted you, but trust must still be earned. There will be those who fear you, those who resent you, those who wish you had never come." "I know," said. "We'll win them over eventually." "Perhaps," turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing, Admiral, the Void Terminus. Is it truly as dangerous as you suggested?" His expression grew serious. "It's worse, High Arbiter, much worse. Our projections were conservative." "Then it seems we will need your capabilities sooner than expected." "We'll be ready," said. "When the darkness comes, humanity will stand beside you." Nodded slowly. "I believe you will. For better or worse, Admiral, I believe you will." He walked away, his ancient joints creaking with every step, leaving alone on the platform where humanity had just changed the course of galactic history. She looked up at the vast chamber, at the empty tiers where thousands of species had gathered to witness this moment. In the distance, through the transparent dome that formed the ceiling, she could see stars. So many stars, so many worlds, so many wonders waiting to be discovered. And somewhere out there, in the darkness between the galaxies, something ancient was stirring. The war for the future had not yet begun, but it was coming. And humanity would be ready. The news of the Council's decision spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. On thousands of worlds, billions of beings heard that a new species had joined the great community of civilizations. Not through the slow process of integration that had served for 12 million cycles, but through a single dramatic moment that changed everything. On Earth, the reaction was one of celebration unlike anything in human history. People gathered in streets and parks, in homes and workplaces, to cheer and cry and hug each other. The dream of generations had finally come true. Humanity was no longer alone. Admiral watched the celebration from her quarters on Station Prime, viewing the footage that arrived from Earth through faster-than-light communication relays. She saw the crowds in New York and Tokyo, in Cairo and Sydney, in every city and town across the planet. She saw children waving flags and old people weeping with joy. She saw a species united in a way it had never been before. "You should be down there," Captain said, standing beside her. "You're a hero now, the woman who brought humanity to the stars." Shook her head. "The work isn't done. It's barely begun. The Council has accepted us, but acceptance isn't the same as trust. We have a long way to go before we truly belong here." "Do you think we ever will? Belong, I mean." Considered the question. "I think humanity will always be different. We'll never be like the species that have been part of the Council for millions of years. But maybe that's okay. Maybe being different is exactly what the galaxy needs right now. Nodded slowly, the void terminus. Yes, the void terminus. She turned away from the screen showing Earth's celebrations. There would be time for joy later. Right now, there was work to do. In the days that followed, human diplomats and scientists fanned out across Station Prime, meeting with their counterparts from hundreds of species. They shared data and technology. They learned customs and protocols. They began the long, slow process of building relationships that would define the next century and beyond. Herself was in constant demand. Every delegation wanted to meet the human admiral who had stood before the council and demanded a place among the stars. Some came with genuine curiosity, eager to learn about this remarkable new species. Others came with suspicion, looking for weaknesses they could exploit. A few came with open hostility, unable to accept that such a young civilization could have achieved so much. Treated them all the same way, with respect, honesty, and quiet confidence. She answered their questions without boasting. She acknowledged human weaknesses without apologizing for them. She made clear that humanity intended to be a good partner but would not be pushed around. It was exhausting work but necessary. Every conversation, every meeting, every handshake and ritual greeting was a small step toward acceptance. And small steps, repeated enough times, could change the world. Or in this case, the galaxy. One meeting stood out from the rest. 3 weeks after the Council's decision, received a request from a delegation she had not expected. The Grand Arbiter species was one of the oldest in the galaxy. They had been founding members of the Council, builders of Station Prime, shapers of the laws that governed interstellar civilization. They rarely met with new species directly, preferring to let younger races handle the details of diplomacy. Accepted the invitation immediately. The embassy occupied an entire section of Station Prime. The corridors were wide enough to accommodate their massive bodies, and the air was thick with the particular mixture of gases they needed to breathe. Wore a filter mask as she walked through the ancient halls, marveling at artwork and architecture that predated human civilization by millions of years. Received her in a private chamber that was simple by standards, but still larger than most human buildings. The ancient Grand Arbiter sat on a raised platform, his 7 eyes watching her approach with an intensity that made her feel very small and very young. "Admiral," he said, "thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting me, High Arbiter. Please sit." He gestured to a chair that had been modified for human proportions. "We have much to discuss." Sat, arranging herself carefully. "What would you like to talk about?" Was silent for a moment, his ancient body still except for the slow movement of his breathing. When he spoke, his voice was different than it had been in the council chamber, more personal, more direct. "I have watched species rise and fall for millions of cycles. I have seen civilizations build wonders and then destroy themselves. I have witnessed acts of incredible courage and incredible stupidity, often from the same beings in the same lifetime." He paused, his eyes focusing on her with laser intensity. "In all that time, I have never seen anything like humanity." Was not sure how to respond, so she simply waited. "Your species should not exist," continued. "By every model we have developed over millions of cycles, you should have destroyed yourselves long before reaching the stars. Your violent nature, your rapid advancement, your constant internal conflicts, all of these factors should have led to extinction. We came close, admitted, more than once. Yes, but you survived. You adapted. You found ways to turn your weaknesses into strengths." His voice carried something like admiration. "Do you know what the other species call you?" Shook her head. "They call you the impossible ones, the species that should not be. Some say you are cursed, that you carry the seeds of your own destruction wherever you go. Others say you are blessed, that some force in the universe protects you and guides you towards survival." "And what do you say?" asked. Was silent for a long moment. When he answered, his voice was thoughtful. I say that you are something new, something the galaxy has never seen before. A species forged by struggle, tempered by disaster, strengthened by every blow that should have destroyed you. He leaned forward, his massive body creaking with the movement. I have lived for a very long time, Admiral. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched the slow march of civilizations across the ages, and I have come to believe that nothing in the universe is truly random. Everything happens for a reason, even if we cannot always understand what that reason is. His eyes bore into hers. Perhaps humanity exists for a reason. Perhaps your impossible survival, your remarkable abilities, your stubborn refusal to accept defeat, all of these things are preparing you for something. A purpose, a destiny. Felt a chill run down her spine. The void terminus. Yes, nodded slowly. The void terminus. You believe it too, don't you? That something is coming. I have believed it for millions of cycles, said quietly. Long before your species existed, long before Earth formed from the dust of dying stars, I have known that something waits in the darkness between galaxies, something old, something patient, something hungry. He turned to look at a screen on the wall, which displayed a star map of the galaxy's edge. The Council does not speak of such things. To acknowledge the void terminus would be to admit that our peace is temporary, that everything we have built could be swept away by forces beyond our understanding. Most species prefer to believe that the universe is orderly and predictable, that the future will be much like the past. But you know better. I know that the universe is vast and full of mysteries. I know that 12 million cycles of civilization is nothing compared to the age of the cosmos. And I know that there are things in the darkness that we cannot imagine, let alone understand. He turned back to face her. When I first heard of humanity, I was afraid. A species that could advance so quickly, that could build weapons capable of erasing matter from existence, that could challenge the entire council with only 200 years of development. Such a species could be a terrible threat. And now, was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. Now I wonder if you are the answer to a prayer I did not know I was making. A species that could stand against the darkness, that could face the void and not flinch, that could do what the rest of us have been too afraid to do. Felt the weight of his words settling on her shoulders. That's a lot of faith to place in a species you barely know. Perhaps, but I am old, Admiral. I have seen enough to know that faith is sometimes all we have. He reached out with one massive limb and touched her shoulder gently. Whatever is coming, whatever horrors the void terminus holds, I believe you will face them, and I believe you will find a way to survive. Why? Seven eyes gleamed with something like amusement. Because that is what you do, Admiral. That is what humanity has always done. You survive. Against all odds, against all expectations, against the very laws of probability, you survive. He his limb and settled back on his platform. Go, prepare your people, build your alliances, learn everything you can from the Council and teach them everything you know. When the darkness comes, you will need every advantage you can get. Rose and bowed her head. Thank you, High Arbiter, for your trust, for your faith. We will try to be worthy of it. Do more than try, Admiral, succeed. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her at the door. One more thing, the other species will resist you. They will fear you. They will try to limit your growth, to contain your influence, to keep you in your place. Do not let them. Look back. Isn't that what you would expect? Caution toward a new and powerful species. Yes, it is exactly what I would expect, and it is exactly wrong. His voice hardened. The galaxy has been at peace for too long. We have grown comfortable, complacent. We have forgotten what it means to fight for survival. You have not. He straightened his ancient body, and for a moment could see the great leader he must have been millions of years ago. Do not let them tame you, Admiral. Do not let them make you soft. The galaxy needs humans who remember what it means to struggle, to fight, to survive against impossible odds. If you lose that, you will lose everything that makes you special. Nodded slowly. I understand. Good, now go. The future waits for no one. She left the embassy with words echoing in her mind. The corridor seemed longer on the way out, darker somehow, as if the shadows were deeper than they had been before. The future waits for no one. She emerged into the main concourse of Station Prime and stood for a moment, watching the endless flow of alien traffic. Beings of every shape and size moved past her, each one absorbed in their own concerns, their own lives, their own small piece of the galaxy. They did not know what was coming. They could not imagine the darkness that waited at the edge of existence. They believed that tomorrow would be much like today, that the peace they had known for millions of cycles would continue forever. But knew better. She touched her communicator to Prometheus. Prometheus here, Admiral. What do you need? Gather the command staff. I want a full briefing on our defensive capabilities and a timeline for fleet expansion. We need to move faster than we planned. Understood, Admiral. Is something wrong? Looked up at the stars visible through the station's dome. So many stars, so many worlds, so many lives that would be lost if they failed. No, she said. Something is finally right. We have work to do. She walked toward the docking port where the olive branch waited to take her back to the fleet. Behind her, Station Prime continued its eternal routine, thousands of species going about their business, unaware that the universe had just changed around them. In the depths of the void terminus, something stirred. It had been waiting for a very long time, longer than the Council had existed, longer than most of the stars in the galaxy had burned. It had watched civilizations rise and fall. It had fed on the remnants of dead empires. It had grown strong on the fear and despair of countless species. And now it sensed something new. A presence unlike any it had encountered before. A species that burned with fierce determination. A civilization that had looked into the darkness and had not flinched. For the first time in eons, the thing in the void felt something it had never experienced before. Hesitation. Not fear, not yet, but uncertainty, a question that had never needed to be asked. What if there was a species that could not be broken, a civilization that would not surrender, an enemy that would fight until the very end, no matter the cost? The thought was strange, uncomfortable, new. The thing in the void considered it carefully. And then, slowly, it began to move. Not toward the galaxy, not yet, but it shifted its attention, focused its ancient intelligence on this new species that dared to challenge the inevitability of its coming. It would watch them, study them, learn their weaknesses. And then, when the time was right, it would come. On Station Prime, Admiral felt a chill run down her spine. She paused in her walk, looking around as if searching for something she could not name. The feeling passed, and she continued on her way. But somewhere deep inside, in the part of her mind that remembered every battle and every loss, she knew that something had just changed. The game had begun, and humanity would be ready. In the observation lounge of the Prometheus, stood before a viewport that showed the entire galaxy spread out before her. Billions of stars, billions of worlds, billions of beings who had no idea what was coming. Her officers gathered behind her, waiting for her to speak. "I know you're tired," she said, her voice quiet but carrying to every corner of the room. "I know you've been away from home for years. I know you want to rest, to celebrate, to enjoy what we've achieved." She turned to face them. "But the work isn't done. It's only beginning. The Council has accepted us, but that acceptance comes with responsibility. We are now the guardians of something larger than ourselves, larger than Earth, larger than anything humanity has ever known." She looked at each of them in turn, steady and reliable, Tors, brilliant and curious, Park, sharp and watchful, all the others who had followed her across the void. Something is coming, something we can barely imagine, and when it arrives, the galaxy will look to us, not because we are the oldest not because we have earned their trust through millions of years of service, but because we are the ones who are not afraid to fight. Her voice rose, filling the room with determination and fire. That is what it means to be human. That is what we have always been. Fighters, survivors, the species that stares into the darkness and refuses to look away. She raised her hand in a fist. So rest while you can, celebrate what we have achieved, but remember, the future is coming, and when it arrives, we will meet it the way we have met every challenge in our history. Her officers straightened, their eyes bright with pride and purpose. Together, outside the viewport, the stars burned on, ancient and indifferent. But among those stars, on thousands of ships and worlds, humanity was preparing. The impossible ones. The species that should not be. The answer to a prayer that no one knew they were making. They were here. And they were ready.